Yes, in front of a live studio audience here at the WHP headquarters. Carl Rominger here with Weekend Appointment, answering your legal questions. Talk line number is 540-0580, 540-0580. And we'll have to get security in here if you keep talking, sir. 540-0580, call with your legal questions. If you follow me on Facebook, and if you do have a chance, please friend me. I will become your friend on Facebook. I'm very easy like that. Just friend me, and I will become your friend. I'm enjoying Facebook, but I posted through Twitter that went on Facebook last night. I was listening to a very smart man talking about the potential for economic ruin here in the country, and I've had a chance to look up and learn a little bit more about him. I was at a cigar dinner, a military cigar dinner, and the guest speaker was a gentleman named Frank Ryan, who's apparently running for U.S. Congress over in Holden's district on the Republican side. He's one of the four in the primary. And because of this equal time stuff and all this radio stuff, I'm not going to get involved with his election information except to tell you that's who he is. If you want to know more about him, contact me through Facebook or through weekendappointment.com. But what I was most interested in is he is an economic expert and has done that for the government in the military capacity, economic warfare, and also in the private sector. And he gave us a very interesting enlightenment about the state of the country and the finances and where we're headed. And I can just say it was frightening, but he was very upbeat and positive that it's not too late. So reach out, find out what these people are saying if you get a chance. And again, if I fill in for Durgan at some point, I'll spend time on it because I really do want people to know where the country is actually headed, what we need to do, and how we need to cut the spending, the hard choices we're going to have to make, but it's not too late. But again, very fascinating man, very fascinating knowledge. 540-0580. Jeff, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Jeff.
Yes, sir, Carl.
Yeah.
I have a little question for you. I have a brother-in-law that co-signed the loan for his brother.
Okay.
And for a car, right, and they couldn't pay it, so the car went back. So this guy from, I don't know where he's from, he's a lawyer, but he wants, I guess, they're trying to collect their money, and they want $6,500. Now, if he don't pay that, what's the worst that could happen?
Well, he co-signed the loan, and the total amount of the loan $6,500.
Well, no, it was a brand new car. They'll settle for $6,500.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying.
The answer is, if worst case scenario is they can sue him and get a judgment against him. Now, it's going to be the same rules of engagement as any other kind of lawsuit with a judgment. Is that helpful?
What you mean? If there's a judgment against him, what can they do? If they sue him, what could they do?
Well, they get a judgment against him. They can sell his property. They can rid his bank accounts. They can execute that judgment to try to collect their funds and auction off the things he owns.
Well, my wife is leaning towards paying it for him. He's not my brother-in-law's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but he has decent credit.
Right.
And that's why my brother-in-law used him.
And that's the other danger too. Is he could ruin his credit. If he has good credit, he might not want to pursue it. Now, reality is, could he work out a payment plan with him?
I don't think so. I think they want it all. I think they want the whole, the whole $6,500. That's what they'll settle for, $6,500.
And that's what they're now. Have you brought an attorney into the picture yet?
No, not yet.
And that's the other way to do it, because once you're kind of armed and dangerous, so to speak. And I'll give you an example. I just had a client in the office. He's got a couple debt collectors coming after him. One of them sued him and turned it into a judgment, and he ignored it. The sheriff shows up. And what's going to happen is eventually I'm going to contact these folks and say, you got two options. One is you're going to accept payment on our terms, or we're going to file a bankruptcy, and then you won't get paid at all. So which way do you want it? And obviously, if he says that, they're like, yeah, right, buddy. But if it comes from me and it comes on the letterhead, they go, oh, okay, he's already talking with a lawyer. He's already involved. This threat is much more serious of a potential bankruptcy. And say, he doesn't want to ruin his credit with a bankruptcy because it's a discrete debt. He wants to pay it down for your brother-in-law here. If his credit was already shot, it might be simpler just to go with the bankruptcy.
Let me ask you another one. Now, if we decide to pay this,
right,
or she'll send him to the bank, or she'll take him to the bank and he'll get the money, and then could we put a lien on that house that he owns?
Yeah, you could get a mortgage against the house, which is basically a lien against property. If he has a bank loan already, and you're talking about the brother who you're paying off for.
You're right.
Yeah, you would record, if he already has a mortgage, you would record essentially what's a second mortgage. And that's a document, again, I've drafted for folks to secure debts, and then we record it at the courthouse. So he can't sell that property without satisfying your debt. He
can't sell it until we're paid off.
Or at the time of sale, you'll be paid off.
Okay. That's basically what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Because I expect him to, at some point sell that house.
Got it. And what you want to do is get it as a mortgage, though. You don't want to just have it as a note, because if it's a note, it's just a promise to pay, and you have to sue him if he doesn't pay it. Record it as a mortgage. It's an effective lien against the sale of the property, and you're protected.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. If you need any help, let me know.
Okay. Thanks a lot, man.
Go to weekendappointment.com to register, get a free will, complain about a legal problem you need answered, or just find my contact information. Matthew on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. The talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Matthew?
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Good. I have a situation. I'm in a development that has an association, and we have some common ground, which is basically a field out behind, in between the association. It's used for, just the common use of all the members of the association. And recently they have put up signs stating that no four-wheeling or ATV, motorcycle use or anything is allowed on the property. Any offenders will be, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Right.
And I went back in and checked the covenants, and there is nothing in the covenants at all about any restriction use of anything in the fields. In fact, the one article of covenant says that all members of the association have equal right to use the property for their personal enjoyment. So my question is, first off, can they enforce this? We've already talked to the local police, and they're not getting involved in all because it's private property.
Right.
But so the question is can they enforce it? And then secondly, can I do something with them for taking the signs down? Because the reality is now it's causing dissent amongst the neighbors who are interpreting it that there is some type of law being broken. And I've even, when I've been out there riding, have had some young kids throwing stones at me and stuff like that. So at least the way I'm looking at it, there's potential liability there, but I wanted your thoughts on it.
Well, it seems like your organization, you guys have meetings, I assume.
Yes, we do.
I think it's time to bring this up at a meeting and kind of either get it understood completely which way it's going to be handled, and make sure that the governing body doesn't adopt any bylaws on to control the use of it. Because even though it's for everybody's enjoyment and use, I think the organization can still, through the democratic process, amend restrictions onto that. So you're going to want to make sure that it stays open for the uses that you're using it for.
But
and at the
as of the point, we know as of now there's been no amendments
right.
to that. So and you're right. I suspect that at some point, this may be addressed to that standpoint. But at this point, it hasn't.
Right. But I think you need to get to the organization, at least say, listen, we've got some issues going on here. Can we at least put in the newsletter and get the word out that as of right now, these are all acceptable uses?
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest and fastest way.
All right, good. I appreciate your help.
No problem, man.
Thank you.
Say, I'm going to take one more call before I go to break here. Anthony on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, how can I help you?
I have kind of, I guess you would say, a business question, because I have been working in private security for quite a while. So I've also taken courses, criminal justice courses on an investigative technique, and that's
okay.
Type of field that I would like to get in, and I was wondering what the rules for that are in the state of Pennsylvania. Would I have to work under somebody else first? Or?
To be a private investigator in Pennsylvania, you have to have either a couple of years of law enforcement work or work for a private investigator for a number of years. Either or will get you in. However, lawyers are not regulated by the Private Investigators Act, at least arguably. And so lawyers traditionally have people that work for them that do things that look a lot like private investigators. So a criminal investigator that works for a lawyer would probably not have to follow the Private Investigators Act. However, that would limit some of what you can do.
Okay, sir, because I didn't, I just wanted to make sure that I was going by the regulations before, because I didn't want to do anything to get myself in trouble, because sometimes when you do that, and then you get, like a state slap on the wrist, and then it takes even longer for you to start back again, even if they let you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, was that helpful?
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right, thank you. 540-0580. We're going to talk with Mark Virginis after the break. Okay, talk line number is 540-0580. Because I'm so fascinated with the financial situation of the world right now, as some of you probably figured out, I brought our good friend Mark Virginis along. Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me, Carl.
And I know, as always, you've got some crazy disclaimer that your industry requires, so shoot.
Okay. I'm a registered representative passing through my securities to Financial Network Investment Corp. as my broker-dealer. Mirrors Financial Partners is the name of my firm, as well as Financial Network are not affiliated.
And, what we're going to do is I'm going to have Shane isolate that, speed it up, and we'll just play it from stock next time.
I think I sent you an email with that in it, so feel free to use it.
So of course, and I know you wanted to tell me a little bit about what's going on with short-term investments versus using a money market. But I also wanted to hit you up again on this Dow being at 11,000. Is that going to last, or is Greece going to take it down? What's happening?
It might be Goldman Sachs. It might not be Greece. Might be some home cooking here. But I really don't think Goldman Sachs is going to stop it. There has been a lot of help going towards Greece. They're not out of the woods yet, but it seems to be quite more watered down than it was in the past, probably in the last 3-4 weeks. Dow 11,000. I've been looking for a 10% correction for quite a while now.
Okay.
And some folks believe we had a correction, but a 5 or 6% correction something about 2 months ago. But because it was a correction, so much cash was on the sidelines, i.e. the short-term investments, that the 10% never happened because folks were buying on a dip. They didn't want to miss the rally. Because if you look at the Dow from March 9th of 2009, you're up about 75, 77% since March 9th.
Okay.
So if you're somebody who sat in one of those short-term investments, you're pretty much kicking yourself right now.
And what you're saying? There's a lot of money parked in the short-term stuff right now.
Yeah, I mean the average money market nationwide now is about 0.05%. Now, to put that in perspective for folks, you would have to hold your money for 350 years at that rate before it doubles. But folks know that, well, I can go to the bank or I can call my broker or what have you, and I know I have that money in my money market.
Right.
I understand I'm only getting 0.05. But with inflation being, pick a number right now, 2.5, close to 3%. If inflation is 3% and you're getting 0.05 and it's in a taxable account, you're negative. You're big-time negative. So your spending power of that money has greatly eroded. And so folks need to look elsewhere. CDs are just as awful right now. I mean, you have to tie your money up for 3 or 4 years to get anything more than a 2% return.
Okay.
But again, if inflation goes to 2.5 or 3, where are you? You're going to be treating negative. You're not going to be positive.
So if I'm thinking, and this again, just thinking out loud because I'm not the expert here, but if I'm thinking, well, the stock market's up there right now, but it's probably not going to go much higher for a while, but I don't want to leave all my money in cash at 0.5% and lose money, where should I be putting it?
Well, again, the big disclaimer, everybody's situation is going to be different. Their time horizon is going to be different. Their risk tolerance is going to be different. But what I'm using for a lot of my clients is a short-term or to intermediate-term municipal bond type of accounts, mainly because, and again, this is my 2 cents. My 2 cents here is that we've had, let's see, in 2008, about 40 banks went under. In 2009, we had about 140 banks went under. In 2010, I believe we have about 20 or so banks that so far this year have gone under. We haven't had any insurance companies, nor have we had any cities or municipalities or authorities.
That we know of yet.
That we know of yet, right. So anything with U.S. in front of it,
wink, wink.
municipal speaking, is is very attractive. And for cities, towns, and so forth, when they have to, build a school, build potholes, redo the park, water treatment plant, or what have you, they need to loan. They need to ask you for your money. They need to float bonds. Well, the only way someone's going to buy that bond is if it has an attractive interest rate. So while we're seeing, right now you can get, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7% yield on some of these investments, with really taking, in a historical picture on risk, taking very little risk. Now, everybody defines risk differently, but right now, daily liquidity, you can get your money out whenever you want, and so forth. Why would you get 1% or 2% when you probably can get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? However, of course, when you talk about bonds in general, they're not guaranteed. Depending on when you sell it, you could actually take a loss. But if it's a holding tank, if you're scared about going to the stock market, if you're truly just letting this money sit there for purchasing power later, why a CD? Why a money market? Why not look at an alternative and deal with someone that you trust or deal with someone you know and just look at it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here because I think, if I understand it right, there's also, if it's a municipal bond fund, there might be certain tax advantages.
Sure. If you bond into the Pennsylvania Municipal Bond Fund, you're going to be free from probably local tax, state income tax, and most likely federal income tax. If you buy something with U.S. in front of the name, meaning United States Bond Fund, and it'll say United States tax exempt national municipal fund or something like that,
right,
you're probably going to be free from federal tax on that, but you might still have to pay state or local. And when you get your tax form from the mutual fund company or from the brokerage company, what have you, when you get your tax return or a tax form in January to do your taxes, it'll tell you how much of that you have to claim.
Right.
Because if that fund actually owns some Pennsylvania issues, not the whole thing is going to be taxed. The Pennsylvania issues will be exempt because you're a Pennsylvania resident, and so forth. So there's some attractive yields. Even California and New York, which everybody, my clients always ask when we go into these funds, do you have any California and New York, because they've been in the news recently of maybe defaulting on some of their bonds. There are still good places within California and in the state of New York. You just have to make sure you're picking the right ones, and a good fund manager like PIMCO or Eaton Vance or Lord Abbott or Hartford does a really good job with.
So I shouldn't probably. Well, I'm not going to go on a limb, but I say buy bond fund on the municipal incinerator here in Harrisburg might not be the best.
You might get one hell of a yield.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a couple calls here, Mark. Some of them might be legal questions. If people have legal questions, call in 540-580. If it's a financial question and you want to tap Mark's big financial brain, we'll be able to do that. Obviously, just like me, he can't answer super specific things, but he can give you some generalities. Bill, you're on WHP 580 with Mark and Carl.
Hello?
Hey, Bill.
Hey, I have a question for you. Last year, I traded in a car and transferred the plates to the new car.
Okay.
I waited for the plates to come in the mail. I got the new plates, sent my old plates in to PennDOT. About 6 months later, I get these parking tickets from Philadelphia. They're all with 2 days apart and all around the same time, 3 this afternoon. Now, I'm self-employed. I haven't been to Philadelphia in 8 years.
Right.
And my wife is a stay-at-home mom, so our kids get off the bus 2:45 and so forth. So now they send us these things in the mail, and we responded saying, hey, listen, we haven't been in Philadelphia. I called PennDOT. PennDOT said it was a dead plate. But the problem was I was still registered that plate till, I think, December of that year.
Usually you can write a letter and explain it.
I did, and I got the form to do it. We keep getting stuff from Philadelphia. Now they're saying they're going to, if they found my car, they're going to impound my car. And now they put us to the credit collection agency for this money. It's for $240, but I'm thinking, if I go to Philadelphia, take a day off work to fight this, it's going to cost me almost $300 to fight it.
Right.
And I don't want to pay for something that I wasn't responsible for. It's almost like extortion, like I'm getting over the barrel here for something I wasn't even involved with.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. The next question is, what's the practical answer? And you got to make up your mind whether you're going to go down there and defend on principle or just pay the money and put your time into to making more money.
Well, if I let this go, what's the worst that'll happen to me? Will they?
I mean, I don't know theoretically at some point if they'll report it to PennDOT and try to suspend your license for failure to respond or non-payment.
Right.
Or suspend the registration, which really doesn't matter because it's a dead plate anyhow. So off the top of my head, I don't know where Philly's going to go with that because that's probably under their municipal court, and we don't have a similar system up here.
Okay.
Hey, Carl, if I may interject, because of my parking.
Oh, that's right. We got an expert here. Here you go.
Yeah, I'm chairman of the board for the City of Lancaster's Parking Authority, and so people always come up to me on the street that know I'm affiliated with it and give me their stories. And your story is a very, very common one. You're not alone.
Okay.
I think even WGAL's Brian Roach did a, he's like their investigative reporter. I think he actually did when he went down to the Philadelphia Parking Authority and said, this lady's 86 years old, hasn't driven a car. There's dust on it in her garage, but you said she was here last week. How is that possible?
Right.
There's a lot of folks who've actually taken it up and have fought it vis-a-vis through the mail and have got it squashed and gone away. No one knows how these parking tickets are falling out of the sky, and folks haven't been to Philadelphia, like you said, in 8 years. But now all of a sudden you're getting parking tickets. It's something I think the Attorney General is going to start looking at as well because no one knows how these parking tickets are just happening. And folks like yourself who have good credit, earning a living, a small business owner and so forth, I don't know if it's a shakedown. I just don't know. But there is an investigation going on as how this is happening.
Right.
So my advice would be for the moment, my practical advice would be report it to the Attorney General's office. And then I'll tell you what I would personally do. I would either figure out a reason to go to Philadelphia to see the Liberty Bell, and while I was down there, take care of it, try to combine some kind of trip somehow.
Right.
Or I would just pay it and chalk it up to hopefully someday somebody goes to jail for hijacking my money.
Right.
And I would go there sugar than vinegar. I would go there with a smile on my face and be really nice and say thank you and yes, ma'am, yes, sir. The more angst you get, the more angry you get, that's what that person's going to give you back. I think you'll be very surprised with how nice you are. You'll get things done.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'm going to go into break. Mark, can you hang with us here?
Sure.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right. 540-0580. See you after the break. Hey, welcome back. 540-0580. Taking your phone calls here, answering your legal questions. And we have Mark Virginis with us today, helping out with the financial situation. Your Honor, you're on the air.
Hello, Counselor. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Well, good. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation as I was leaving my garage and thought I would suggest that perhaps maybe the person might want to consider going to a magisterial district judge and filing an affidavit, which has to be then, of course, sent to PennDOT, requesting that the citation be discharged as erroneous.
Okay.
I think there's a place in the vehicle code which calls for that. I don't have the site in front of me right now, but I wouldn't say that the person has been they're trying to rip anybody off. I think what happens in a lot of cases like this is that they have the person who's writing the citation gets the digit wrong as far as the number. They're off one or two numbers, and unfortunately that puts the person in this kind of a situation. So if they go to the magisterial district judge and request that they can swear an affidavit, it has to be, of course, notarized by the magisterial district judge. I have done that many times, and I haven't had anybody come back and indicate that they have had to ultimately pay the citation. Now, perhaps maybe this gentleman waited too long. I don't know, but I would think it'd be worth a try, at least at this point, rather than for him to pay a large amount of money for something that, of course, he had no doing. So that's my 2 cents. How's that?
Oh, I appreciate it. That's not something I was aware that we could do. So, and this has come up on the air a few times over the last year and a half, where people have called in with a very similar situation. So we're going to add that to our arsenal, Judge. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Take care. Well, there you go. You got it from a real live judge what to do. Go to your district judge and swear out an affidavit and send it in. Kay, you're on with Mark and Carl.
Carl.
Yes.
I'm Kay. Did you say Kay?
Yep.
Okay, Carl. this is me being nice. And please remember, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind or rip anybody off.
Right.
And but I cannot. Let me just say briefly here. I cannot believe the stuff that you're saying that spills out of the mouth of this putting your money in the stock market and things like that. I have lost so much money in the stock market, and it was over years. When my husband died, it was, oh, well, now you got to pay taxes on this, and, well, this wasn't mature, so that'll cost you a penalty, and I probably have lost very close to $100,000 in the stock market. And if the stock market is so, I mean, why doesn't the government invest in the stock market? If you get all the money back that you guys claim you get back, because you don't get that money back. This is just an unbelievable forced to tell people if I have $1 million and I bury it. Now, okay, I don't care what you think of me, but if I bury it in the backyard and I tell my kids where my $1 million is,
right.
When I die, they have $1 million.
Right.
And they don't have $500,000. They have $1 million.
Now, Kay, let's let Mark respond to that, because that's his expertise. Mark, what do you got to say to Kay?
Well, Kay, I feel for her, because I know a lot of folks who've lost money over the years, but I know a lot of folks who've gained a lot of money over the years.
I don't know too many common.
Okay, Kay, let Mark respond to you.
Okay, thank you.
I do, because they're my clients, but I don't know who you've worked with, whether it was a bank or a broker or an insurance agent or whoever.
Both. All the above.
All the above.
Okay. Well, like in any type of industry, there's going to be good guys and bad guys. There's going to be good apples and bad apples. My blanket comment at the beginning here regarding short-term money market type instruments and CDs was just something that's going on in the current marketplace today, with interest rates being pretty much close to zero, and folks looking to get some type of return on their money, albeit safe. Until I meet with someone privately, personally, get a heck of a lot more facts and figures from them, can I actually render a decision? I'm talking in, a big picture, like a 10,000-foot view, if you will, of the marketplace. So everyone's situation is going to be different. However, all statistical information shows over the long term, whether that's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, everybody's long-term view is different. The stock market has outperformed. It's just a matter of how much risk, how much reward you want, and what do you want that money to do. If it's us setting up for a legacy situation where I want to protect my wife's income or I want to protect my husband's income or their lifestyle, that's going to be a very different picture from somebody who just wants to have capital appreciation, wealth accumulation. So I hear you. I know a lot of folks have come into my office because they never got communication with their broker, and they just watched their money go down. And yeah, my heart goes out to you because I know a lot of folks who've come in my office who felt that way.
Well, and Kay, I guess what I'll tell you is, you could have been the victim of bad advice. I don't think burying the money in the backyard is always great, because if you did it for long enough, inflation certainly would eat into it, because the odds of accumulating $1 million.
Yeah, but it eats into it whether you invest it or not. If you invest $100,000 and inflation goes,
right. But if you have 150 later and inflation's gone on, you're still better than 100. But okay, I understand your position. I understand it. I think it's good for people to bring out countervailing viewpoints, and obviously you're not a fan of investment vehicles based on personal experience, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I am. I mean, I think to myself, well, if investing is so good, then why doesn't the government do it?
They do, though. They do.
I know they do. But we are $10 trillion in debt.
Well, that's because we're spending more than we're bringing in. That's just that's simple economics. Okay, I'm going to let you go and take a couple more callers here.
May I ask you one question? I have a MedLife shares. It's not much. It's only worth $700. I have been trying for 6 years to have this willed to somebody when I die. And it seems I get no help anywhere. Where can I go to have these stocks that I have?
Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you off, and then just keep listening here. I'll give you a little information here in a second. We'll give Kay a little information who to call here in a second. Ron, you're on with Carl and Mark.
Good afternoon, Carl. I was a district justice for 22 years, and the fellow that called about the traffic citation that he didn't get in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
We had that happen quite a number of times, and what we did was get the complainant's affidavit, send it directly to Philadelphia Traffic Court, and they would discharge the citation.
Okay.
And it worked for years and years. Never had anybody that was turned down. So
that's the trick.
Go to the district justice. They know how to do it. Well, it's a district judge now, but when I was there, it was a district justice. I think they can take care of you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, we've heard it twice from two judges now, retired and current. So I think that's probably where we need to go. John, you're on with Carl and Mark. John? Yep.
Hello? Mark, how are you?
How you doing, John?
Good. I have a question for you. My wife and I are 66 years old, and we both have long-term care insurance. Now, my question is this. It keeps going up and up and up. Right now, we're going to be paying about $300 a month between us.
Now, let me tell you to hold on to that thought because Shane's signaling me we're going to go to break.
Okay.
But when we come back from break, we're gonna finish that question off.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. Mark Virgin is helping us on the financial end. I'll see you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here with Mark Virginis, 540-0580. And John, you were just talking about a long-term care issue here?
Yes, Carl, I got a question. Thank you for taking my call. My wife and I both have long-term care insurance. We're paying about $300 a month, and it keeps going up every year. Now, my question to you is, if we drop this, say we drop it, okay, now we own a house, we have a mortgage on it. If something happens to one of us, say I come down with dementia next year, for example,
right.
They have to put me in a home. Can they take my house? I mean, even though we have a mortgage on it, and it's in both our names, my wife and I's both names. Can they take your house from me or anything like that, Carl?
Well, and I'll field this just a little bit, and then we'll talk to Mark here.
Okay.
The short answer is yes and no. There are exceptions. In other words, when you go into the home, if you can no longer afford to pay, and you might have to go with the Medicaid,
right?
We would use a formula, and you as the spouse who's in, certain assets are at play. The spouse who's out, certain assets are at play, and there are certain exemptions. And the home, they're not going to force you to sell it or liquidate it to allow the other spouse to live in it. If the home, for any reason, becomes part of your estate, it may be subject to collection later.
Okay.
If the home does not become part of your estate because it's been titled properly all along, and it becomes part of your wife's estate, the home will be an exempt asset.
Okay.
However, its value is going to count towards the total for the spousal exemption for the spouse that doesn't go. So there's a couple overlays there. Mark, am I describing that roughly correctly?
Yeah, you're right, and you want to be sure that if you know dementia's coming or doctor's watching something, he's talking to you about it, and you say, hey, I'll just start gifting all of my assets away, so therefore I will be destitute and on Medicaid.
Okay, well, the thing about it, there's nothing, I mean, I'm not on the verge of it as far as I know anything.
No, I know, we're just talking in examples.
Right, I know.
But, I mean,
Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's okay, but there's a 5-year look back if you start giving away assets and so forth. And then you had mentioned something earlier. You said our premiums keep on going up.
Right.
A lot of long-term care companies, especially the ones I work with, we haven't had price increases in decades. I mean, you might want to look at, again, without touching that policy or before you let it lapse, you might want to go to someone like myself to say, here's the situation, here's our medical situation, and so forth. Here's what we'd like to have.
Right.
What's the price with a AA plus rated company?
Right.
There's certain kind of like the GEs or the Hancocks and so forth out there that haven't really risen their premiums. And you might say, okay, we got X. Now it can go up. It's allowed to go up, but by looking at the history here, it hasn't. And there's just there used to be a ton of insurance companies who were in this market, long-term care insurance, like in the early 80s to mid-80s, and then all of a sudden, now you can really probably count on your fingers and toes how many are left in this arena, because and I know, folks in the United States are getting older all at once.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Generation, and these insurance companies are looking at, not 20, 30, 40 years of collecting premium, and now they have to pay with like life insurance. Long-term care insurance, people are buying it late, and then you only may be paying 10, 15 years worth of a premium, and then all of a sudden they have to pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars to a nursing home.
Right. I think about it is, like you say, going to another company, I think because we are 66 years old, we probably, my guess would be that we would pay more than what we're paying today because we're getting it at a higher age.
You might, but you'd be surprised how competitive it is.
So what I'm gonna summarize for you guys here. I think, John, I think what Mark's telling you is dumping it might be okay for you. But before you did that, number one, you should make sure that you couldn't find a better rate or a rate that you could at least lock.
Right.
Number two is you probably want to sit down, and I just did this with a client the other day. We did an analysis because there is somebody in the family who has dementia. We did an analysis to see where are we going to be at if you have to go to a home and where so I think once you've run all those numbers in the office with the lawyer and the financial advisor, you can then figure out for your individual situation.
Well, what I'll do is maybe I'll give you a call during the week or something. I can find you on the internet.
And Mark is I've got him linked on weekendappointment.com under Friends of the Show.
Okay, well, you said, just one quick question. You said about gifting things. I could not gift my house to my daughters as long as I have a mortgage on it. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, the mortgage could create a problem.
Right. I didn't think so. I mean, I could sell it to her for $1 if I didn't owe anything on it. I would assume something like that.
Right.
Okay.
All right, my friend, I'm going to let you get a couple more callers here.
I thank you very much.
All right, thanks, John. All right, let's see who's next here. Dan.
Yeah, I have a question about that situation with the parking tickets in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I have an Easy Pass, and occasionally the batteries go dead in those things, and I've gotten Easy Pass violation tickets before. I prove I have the Easy Pass, and by my statements, and they release the ticket.
Right.
I'm just wondering for the parking authority gentleman there, I think his name is Mark.
Yep.
Why is, I'm going to call my legislator about this Monday to suggest that these parking meter attendants have a digital camera along with them and take a picture of the license plate, because there's no reason that they're so inexpensive today, and you know what, they would actually prove their case, because I think in our Constitution we have a right to be innocent until proven guilty. So they need to prove that we were actually there. Don't you agree with me?
Well, but I'm going to interject and say that the courts have said that the legislative, you're right, the legislative branch would have to address that, because proof is just testimony, and you can't dictate to the executive branch how to prosecute the crime. Although you might say that there's some more doubt, the system's going to continue to allow the parking meter to write it down wrong. But Ohio requires camera shots of the radar tickets. So that you're not out there. I'm just moving really quickly between callers here. Jeff, you're on WHP 580 with Carl and Mark.
Hello?
Yeah, Jeff.
I have a question. You had a caller calling in about how great the stock market is and all that stuff. And I have a particular item where...
Shoot fast, my friend. I'm getting the fingers from Shane.
It went down, and that's okay. The stock was based in oil, which is in the ground, and oil went down, so that was okay. But then they decided to sell the company to a foreign country. And I lost some money, a lot of money. And I'm wondering, they closed in 60 days on basically December 31st, 2009. Since then, oil has gone up substantially, and it had gone up substantially since they made the offer. What's the possibility of doing some sort of class action lawsuit on that? Because it involved 225 million barrels of oil they had known in the ground.
Well, the answer on that one is, and I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, I have no idea, because you'd have to show malfeasance by the company so the shareholder derivative suit. And I would suspect the way the world works, if somebody hasn't filed one already, if they're a publicly traded company, then it probably isn't even a
publicly traded New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, because there are people out there who just, law firms who just look for situations to sue, and there are more suits than there are wrongs. So, Mark, am I crazy here? But I would suspect somebody would have already called them on it if it was blatantly.
Or it still might be in due diligence, and they're trying to probably get all their facts lined up first. I would agree with you 100% there, Carl.
So long and short of it is, if you want to, you'd have to go find one of these shareholder derivative lawsuit firms. Which usually,
this wasn't a derivative. This was a standard company, standard stock. And
I'm talking about, but shareholders derivative suit just means that you as a shareholder can sue on behalf of everybody else against the company.
All right,
my friend, I'll let you go. Mark, thank you very much for joining us. What phone number could people get you at, Mark? Quick.
Yeah, real quick, 509-4521.
509-4521?
Marist Financial Partners. Look forward to speaking to anybody.
And we got you linked up on weekendappointment.com. Throughout the week, folks, make sure you stop by weekendappointment.com, register, ask your legal questions, and I'm going to add a section if you want to ask some financial questions to Mark in the future.